Welcome to the Chatter's Box. My name is Kyle McClellan, your host, and this series is the 1982 World Championship St. Louis Cardinals series, and we are joined by Hall of Famer Ozzie Smith. Ozzie, thank you so much for stepping into the Chatter's Box today. You're the first current Hall of Famer to be on this podcast. This is a big deal for you to be at it.
Well, good. I hear nothing but good things about it, so figured it's my turn.
A couple that will probably be in the Hall of Fame. Albert, probably pretty good chance he's going to be in, don't you think?
That'd be a good bet.
Yeah, probably a good one. Yachty, probably going to be in.
Probably a good bet.
And we've had Adam Wainwright, and I tell you what, with his longevity that he's shown, he's going to be in that mix.
Yeah, he'll certainly get a lot of consideration, as he should. You know, when you are able to play as long as he's played and play as consistently as he has performed. You give yourself a chance, and that's really all you can do is do your best and give yourself a chance.
In today's game, especially pitchers, you feel like they're probably going to have to adjust some of that criteria, right? We're not seeing the guys putting up the numbers they were,
right? Because they don't throw as much, and so the numbers certainly will have to change as we go forward here. But I think that we look at Wainwright and what he's been able to do. I think his consistency, probably more than anything else, is really what's going to stand out with him, and the success that he had early on in his career too. Because before we start going to 5 innings and stuff, he was a bulldog.
Mm-hmm.
He was one of those Carpenter guys, one of those Gibson guys, and stuff. So I think that'll play well for him.
I was in the bullpen with Carpenter and Wainwright, and we pretty much had the day off for those 2 games back to back and get ready for the next 3 days because those 2 are going to give you some time. Well, those guys have won some championships in their time. We're here to talk about the 82 championship as this part of our of the Chatter's Box, this series here. And I have my co-host with me, Dave. Have you ever met Dave?
LaPoint?
Yeah.
With the
E
I've
at
met
the
him
end,
once or twice.
Okay, so he apparently was on that team, and was a member of that.
I don't remember that.
You probably ask all 25 guys on the team, and I have 25 different nicknames. So, and they all fit, and they're all correct. So I'm not going to argue with it.
Well, we brought him in on this. I just, in all honesty, the 82 championship was before I was born.
That's right.
And so with me hosting this, I want to do this justice, and I want it to be, as I know from a player standpoint, on the 11 team, I know the questions and the things that happen. Everybody knows the highlights, right? And the big moments in that series. I don't want to miss those other ones and that team camaraderie and how you guys came together as a team to win a world championship. And so Dave, I've known through fantasy camp for, 6-7 years now. And everybody loves Dave, and I think he's going to be great on this. So I called him a few weeks ago, and I said, "Hey, I want to do this," and he graciously accepted. So I'm excited to have him here and co-hosting with me on this. But I want to start with you came to the Cardinals in December of 81.
81, the winter of 1981. I got traded for Gary Templeton.
So I know
probably one of the greatest players that ever donned a pair of spikes.
You?
Gary Templeton.
Oh, okay.
Okay, both of you.
No.
So I want to go back to that because I know through our times around Whitey and around you, I've kind of heard how that went and how that trade went down. But can you kind of just elaborate a little bit on that process of you coming here to St. Louis and how that all unfolded?
Well, I think for the trade to come about, I think there was a Thursday afternoon where things didn't go very well for Gary here, and he had an altercation with the fans. And now I've seen pictures. As a matter of fact, somebody sent it to me the other day of Whitey pulling him off the field. And it was at that particular time that Mr. Bush said that he didn't want him to wear the uniform anymore. So I guess the hunt for a shortstop began at that particular point. And so I guess I was the next man up for the job to come and replace somebody who, seriously, I consider one of the greatest players, a true 5-2 player. Could hit for power, could hit for average, could run like a deer, had a cannon for an arm. I mean, just did it all. And when you get traded for a player like that, there's a lot of pressure to go and be able to perform. And so certainly coming over here, that was a real challenge for me coming here. But one of the things that Whitey did was that made it real easy. He just said, just come over and be yourself. Just do what you do. and that made it a little bit easier. But still, you get traded for a player of that caliber. There's a lot of pressure to come over and do well, because I talk to people now, and we talk about the fact that I said, I bet you're one of those people that said, when that trade was consummated, you said, we traded Gary Templeton for who? And so I have a lot of fun with it. But he certainly was a great player, a fun player to watch. And we get to play a lot of golf together now too, So we talk about that. But Whitey coming over and explaining to me that if I came and played for this organization, there's no reason that we couldn't win it all, was a boost of confidence that I needed as a young player coming over and expected to be that missing piece of the puzzle. I got that opportunity. And sometimes, when you, as a player, we don't know if we're good as we think we are. Mm-hmm. So there was that question as to whether or not I am as good as I think I am, or as people think I am, and whether or not you'll be able to withstand the pressures and everything that go along with playing for an organization that's so rich in tradition. When you think about the St. Louis Cardinals, you think of Stan, Red, Bob, Lou, and all those people. And being considered one of those people, is an honor in and of itself. So when I came over here, I came over here knowing that it was an organization that had a chance to win, and I just wanted to contribute where I could. My defensive prowess is what, is what got me here and got me to the big leagues. And as long as I did that, I felt that things would be okay.
So, I think the trade process, Whitey made trades. You go back and look. I mean, it was like trade every offseason.
He had he had the luxury of being the GM and the manager, and I think that when you have that luxury, you can do some things that people may consider abnormal. But I think he had a great idea, and it's one of the things that's made Whitey such a great manager is that he's done it at every level. So he had a real good understanding of how to put it together. He had done that in Kansas City. And so coming here to this spacious Busch Stadium as we had, and I think at the time it was like $390 to the gaps and $420 to straightaway center field. So you in being an architect of a team like that, you got to get people, first of all, who can cover a lot of ground, and people that all have the right mental frame of mind, of what it's going to take as a team to be able to make it all work. And Whitey was pretty good at putting all that together.
So was there any, like at the time he's reaching out to you and recruiting you? Mm-hmm. Like that's not normal now, right? I mean, you can't do that. But back then, I mean, he was actually trying to sell you on coming here, like you had a say in it.
Yeah,
it sounds like, right?
He did. Well, at the time, I had a no trade clause in my contract as a 3-year player, which was kind of unheard of. And they didn't explain that to him before he got there. So it wasn't until we had gotten into the process that he realized that, hey, he has a no trade clause. And I'd watched all these guys with no trade clause get paid, So when that came about, I'm thinking somebody called me. One of the writers called me and said, hey, well, welcome to St. Louis. I go, I'm not going to St. Louis yet. I haven't okayed or nobody's giving me any money to be traded. So that was kind of what held the trade up, because I realized that, my time there was up. But Whitey was able to, through all of his knowledge and his abilities, his negotiating abilities, he gave me an ultimatum that, I couldn't refuse it. He said, hey, look, here's the deal. If you come to St. Louis and you play and you don't like it, you can become a free agent at the end of the year. And I was gonna make more money too,
Mm-hmm.
So he made it real simple, real easy, and as you probably know, when you come here and you play for this organization and the support that they have here in this city from a baseball standpoint, there ain't nothing like it. There ain't nothing like it. And if you, as a professional, can't come and play in an environment like this, then you probably shouldn't be playing.
Yeah, Dave, what'd you know about Ozzie up to that? I mean, we all know him as the Ozzie Smith here in St. Louis, but when you heard Ozzie Smith's coming over, what was that?
He was one of those people saying, traded.
We did what?
Well, you know what? I got traded in December of 80, so 81, and had the one spring training. And when Whitey came in, you just felt the DNA of the organization totally switching over from, the way he puts it, we had a bunch of slow-footed people out there that they were good players at the time, but they weren't what he wanted. And I remember a spring training game with Tempe, and I played with Tempe on 2 teams he was a great player, but we went on a spring training game and he's wearing high-top Converse sneakers playing shortstop. And I just remember sitting there going, that kind of looks weird. And I just look over at Whitey, and I see him go to one of the coaches. Is he wearing sneakers out there? I was like, these little things finally were going to make a difference. And then we got Ozzie. They put Tommy at second, who they knew was going to be a good defensive player, and they moved Obi from second to third. And I know I'm a little bit prejudiced on this, but I think it's the best fielding infield in the history of baseball. And I think Obi might have been our worst guy at like 978 or something like that. And
Keith at
first. And the thing about
who
him
was at
is
first base.
when they caught the ball, I mean, they made spectacular plays, but the only thing I just over and over and over, there was never like a bad throw. And, we had the best first baseman who was going to pick it. But his worth ethic came in, and it changed a little bit. And, Whitey was different. Like, Darryl Porter might not have been the best statistic catcher, throwing guys out, everything, but every other part of the game he played the right way. And that's what Whitey wanted. He wanted you to just do it the right way. So, and luckily along the line, he trusted the rookies too. He gave us a chance. We weren't just going to sit there and rot, and that made a big difference too.
So you get to spring training, getting acclimated with a new team, new management, new everything. You're the big player that just came in. How was that spring training, and then that start to the season? I think everybody thinks, well, you win the World Series, like you just boat race everybody the whole year, and you go. I mean, it takes time
easy.
to build to that,
I'm
right?
gonna tell you, but coming over here, it was easy because I had a great mix of veterans and young guys, and when you have the likes of people like Gene Tennis, who had won 3 consecutive championships in Oakland, you had George Hendrick, who was also part of that team.
Jim Cott, Bob Force, and just natural teachers.
So it made it easy. And as I said before, if you can't fall in line in a situation like this here, then, you probably shouldn't be here. So the transition coming over here was easy. All I had to do was go out and do what I had done to that point that had gotten me here, and continue to work and learn from about offense as we went forward. And Whitey made that easy too. He said keep the ball out of the air and utilize your speed and stuff. And I learned how to do that pretty quickly. I got $1 for every ground ball I hit, and he got $1 for every fly ball. And you'd be amazed at how things like that make you concentrate a little bit more, and I learned to stay on top of the ball.
So was that after every game you guys settled up?
Yeah, we settled up. Yeah, and midway, I was smoking him pretty good. So, but it's little things like that I think managers like him understand. They're not afraid to relegate authority. If this is as a coach, this is your job. This is you do your job, and if everybody does their job to the best of their ability, then your team's got a better chance to win.
I've always said baseball is actually a very individualized sport.
Mm-hmm.
If you have 9 individuals on the field that are all playing, not for themselves, but if they're
a team concept. It's an individual sport played with a team concept.
Yes.
And if you understand that,
if my second baseman has his numbers, and my shortstop has his numbers, and my third baseman has his numbers, and my pitcher has his numbers, at the end of the year, we're going to be a pretty good team. In football, it's a lot different, right? You have one guy that misses a block, and the whole play goes down. In baseball, it's you kind of learn that, like, everybody's trying to get their own, but you're not sacrificing other stuff.
Right.
To
Whitey
do
was
that.
the only guy I think I've ever seen that throughout the whole season, and we had players going in that nobody ever second guessed him.
Mm-hmm.
When he made a decision, it was right, and he explained it if you wanted to, but you just after a while it's going to be the right thing to do, and everybody trusted him. And
you just knew that he was going to give the team the best chance to win, and that's really all you can ask for. Is just keep us in a position where we have a chance to win.
Put us in the right spots that we can go out and do, succeed and do well.
That's right.
He told us pitchers in spring training that you'll never be a starting pitcher on my team if you can't bunt. I never heard any other manager or pitcher coach come up and say that to the pitchers. And then, of course, there's George Kissel standing right in the next locker teaching us all how to bunt. And we were in them cages every day. And then, you got the money for the ground balls. He'd tell us, if you get 4 sacrifice bunts in the game, I'm going to buy you a Cadillac. I finally got Montreal. I had 3, and I'm going up to get the 4th one, and I screwed it up. He goes, I'll get you one anyways. And he had one of these 3-inch toy Cadillacs he put in your desk.
If you would have got 4, would he give you a real one?
He did. He gave it to me anyways. 3-inch Cadillac. He'd laugh about that. Man, you thought you were getting a real one, didn't you? Well, I thought. That's not easy. But
all of those veteran managers were like that. I played on a couple teams in Japan, and Tommy Lasorda was the manager, and he said, "Now, if you're an MVP, you're gonna get a giant television. They like to give away stuff over here. So he went around and told everybody that if you're the MVP, you're gonna win a television, all kind of stuff." Yeah, right. They give you a bouquet of flowers. And so, they do that as an incentive to make you play hard. Were those
those same TVs we won if we came in first place in spring training?
In spring training, same ones. But it's those little things like that I think that managers understand that drives players to make them better. And Whitey and Tommy and all of them were they were managers that understood that.
Yeah. So what do you remember about that? Give me some talking points of the 82 season, not postseason. Like, what do you remember about that regular season, about the grind, about the coming together as a team, the overcoming whatever it was? What stands out from there?
I'm going to tell you, the first month of the season, Willie had come over too, and this is after David Green had gone down. So Willie was there in spring training. And we became very good friends. And he didn't break with the club when we came north. So I can remember riding back and forth because he stayed with me when he came up. Riding back and forth, and we had won 4 or 5 games in a row, and I'm thinking, boy, God, dog, we got to do this all year. You got to try and run this. You got to try and run this thing all year this way and stuff. So from that standpoint, when you start looking at it like that, if you've won 5 or if you've won 10 in a row, you're going, boy, that wasn't easy, and we got to continue this all year. And so coming over here and experiencing that was a new experience for me, because certainly playing in San Diego, I had never experienced that because over there was a revolving door. So I came here and there was some stability to what it was we were trying to achieve. There was a consistency to the lineup every day. You knew where you were going to be in the lineup every day. And so you come to the ballpark knowing and feeling that, hey, you know what, if I do my job today, I'm going to help give this club a chance to win.
So that consistency, dive into that a little more. Why does that make a difference from a player standpoint?
Well, I think it's the one thing that probably separates the good from the average and the good from the great. Is a degree of consistency that you do your job every day. Being able to, from a pitching standpoint, being able to get that ground ball and know that if you get a ground ball in a certain situation, you're going to be able to get a double play. Having that type of confidence in the people that play behind you. And I think that was one of the things that Whitey preached to these guys, that when you have a good defense behind you, that should make pitching a lot easier. You can't go thinking that I'm going to strike everybody out. You don't have to when you have great defense behind you. And I think that, talking about the modern-day Cardinals, I think that that's one of the things that they possess now, with knowing that if I get a ground ball, there's a chance, there's 99.9% chance, and I'm gonna get an out. And so that's invaluable, knowing that. And I'm sure that pitchers will say to you that, hey, when I know that in a tough situation, if I can get the ground ball to my second baseman, my shortstop, I'm going to get an out.
Mm-hmm. Pointer, what do you remember of the season?
Well, in the defensive end, remember when Willie came up and Whitey had a little talk with Willie, and he says, I want you to play every ball in batting practice off the bat. I just want you to go and get every ball you can and get used to the stadiums and what you see, when the game starts. And and Willie was never one to second guess or argue that he did it. And he went out and he did it every day. So then that was another thing. Ozzie, we were talking about this today, his routine during batting practice, where I was telling Brendan Ryan, like, Ozzie would be infield on his knees on AstroTurf during batting practice and still taking fungos, and just catching everything that came at him. Like, All right, first of all, we think, well, he's crazy. He's going to get hit. Well, none of them ever came close, but he had this work ethic going on. And there's Willie in center, and there's, we had hardworking coaches too.
Yes.
Dave Ricketts in a fungo bat, they never parted, and we had old-fashioned Hub Kittle pitching coach that he didn't. It was a team that didn't let anybody get too far out on their skis. We weren't. I mean, no disrespect, they weren't the Hall of Famers yet. They're on their way, but they weren't yet. We had a bunch of guys that were trying to get there, and they all worked. So, you're that young guy watching these guys saying, well, I better jump on board. And I think I always like to say that we had John Stuper come up June 1st, and we had a trip to San Francisco where he might not have had a very good game. Might have walked 9 players in that game on a plane trip back.
It was 10. It was 10.
Was it 10?
It was 10.
Yeah. Well,
We'll go with 12.
Well, we had some fun on that flight back because he just let it all out, and I just remember that the trip that the veterans and the rookies and everybody all became one, and it was a good bunch of guys. And luckily, it was a good bunch of guys, and the other part of that team is when you do get a lead and you turn it over to number 42, you're pretty much going home. So that had a lot to do with it also.
Yeah, when you look at that team, that mix of young guys, veteran guys, and contributing, like you said, to come up and allow the young guys. And now baseball now is different than it was.
Right.
And I don't want to be one of those guys that's like, it's different when I
play.
play.
Let me say this here. The one thing about Whitey, if you were a young pitcher, he wanted to know what was in here right away. So you got thrown into the fire. So if you couldn't handle it, he knew that right away. Now, whether you won or lost, I don't think it really had a whole lot to do with it. He'd like for you to win, but he wanted to see how you accepted it, how you went about it. And if you went about it the right way, it didn't matter whether you won or lost. If you had if you had it down in here, if you showed that you cared, you were going to get that opportunity. And this was a great place to be able to come to work every day, because we came to the ballpark asking ourselves, who's going to be the star today? Who's going to get the big hit today? As opposed to, oh boy, how are we going to lose today?
Mm-hmm.
That's a big difference.
When's winter vacation start?
Yeah.
And we also had mentors within the clubhouse.
Yeah.
They always said if you ever did bad enough that you had to have a meeting with Whitey, you weren't going to be around very long, because he did it the right way. He let the players handle the problems first, and then the coaches, and then him. And if it got to him, you were gone anyways. But Bob Forsch, Gene Tennis, Jim Cott were a big presence on that team. And Gene Tennis was the second catcher, but he was basically in charge of the guys on the bench that might pinch hit or pinch run or defense late in the game. And it came, 5th or 6th inning, he'd bring them all out, they'd stretch, and they'd get ready for the game. And if you didn't do it, he was not a boy to mess with. He let vein be coming out of his neck, and he was not happy with you. And then pretty much, after 2 weeks of it, they understood. You don't want the wrath of Gene Tennis, then you better go out there and get ready for the game. And he patrolled the extras. Forsh patrolled the starters. Bruce took care of the relievers. But we had Doug Bear, we had Mark Littell, we had veteran guys there. So, as Whitey said, if you didn't come in and throw strikes, you're an idiot, because that ball was going to get caught someplace.
Yeah. So when I hear you talk, it's a mirrored image of our championship team in 11, right? Tony did a good job of allowing the veterans to run the clubhouse, but you can't do that unless you have the veterans that can run the clubhouse.
That's right.
Right. So those names you're throwing out, those are names that everybody knows and respects right away. I think to our team, Adam Wainwright, Chris Carpenter, Yadier Molina, Albert Pujols.
That's what the organization has done. They've done a great job of getting people that had good leadership skills, people that took a lot of pride in their work and stuff. And that's why the organization has had the reputation that it's had for so long, because it continues to produce the Carpenters, the Gibsons, the people that have great work ethics, the Pujols, the Molinas. It just keeps going, and hopefully it'll be here long after we're gone.
Even if it hits me like back in batting practice. Get him over, get him in, ace swings. And if you didn't get him over, somebody's yelling from the outfield. Some other player, get him in. All you got to do is hit a ground ball, infield back, hit a ground ball to shortstop, you got an RBI. That's what wins games. And if you didn't do it, even if you were a pitcher and you couldn't hit like these guys, you're going to hear it from somebody. And it was just it all just sank in.
That's right.
Everybody fell into the plan.
Routine. It was a routine that you went through every day. This is something that you did every day. And to me, the hard work is done before the game starts. When the game starts, it should be easy.
Yeah, you're showing off, right?
Yeah,
I mean, you're able to display what you've worked.
What you've worked on.
I tell my kids all the time, we work at home, so then the games we get to show other people what we've been doing. That's when you get to perform.
Yeah,
right?
most people come to the ballpark and they'll see a good performance. At 7:15, 7:30. That's not what I'm interested in. I know that if he had a good performance today, or yesterday, or the day before, it's because of all the hard work that he had put into it that allowed him to be in a situation like that to where he could experience success. And that's what good clubs do.
Yeah.
They always have people who are willing to put forth the blood, the sweat, and the tears, and no success comes without some blood, some sweat, and some tears. And that's usually done long before you get to the ballpark.
Yeah. So when did you guys know we're going to go to the postseason? When I started digging into this a little bit, what I was shocked about, do you know the last time the Cardinals were in the postseason before you guys were in 82?
68, wasn't it?
1968.
57, 60, 68. They lost to the Tigers, but
you talk about a gap, and there's an expectation, right? Now in Cardinal Nation and Cardinals fans, it's like, man, we have had a great run but now let's explain that there was a lot less teams that made the playoffs back then.
Right.
It was 4 teams, correct?
Right.
Now we got more. We just expanded it, so that's a part of it. But it's not like you guys were in a culture, in an environment that expected to go to the postseason. You guys were the first of that started that run.
We were predicted we're not going to finish any better in third according to all the experts, but as they always say, we didn't know that.
Yeah,
and we had the young guys. I think that, the last part when we all knew we were there is when that game in Philly with bases loaded and Schmidt versus Suter and 1-2-3 double play, and then we knew we're pretty close here. We got a shot, and
so that was in September. You said.
Yeah, that was in September. It was in September.
And where were you at in the standings on that?
We were back and forth.
Okay.
In the standings, but we'd gone to San Francisco, and I got a hematoma in my thigh. Mike Ramsey had to take over, and we went through a stretch of, I want to say, between 7 and 10. Yeah, 7. We had a 7-game stretch.
Yeah.
Where it was a doubleheader at Shea, and you had to go to Philadelphia, and Mike. As is the case with all the teams that Whitey was able to put together, he put those people in there, and our backup guys knew that that's what they were, but their job was to come in and hold it together till we get our regulars back in there. And Mike Ramsey came in and played for me and played flawlessly, and I think it was at that point the Mike Schmidt, Bruce Suter matchup in Philadelphia that things could have gone the other way. But he gets Mike Schmidt to hit into a 1-2-3 double play. You get out of that, and it was clear sailing from there.
Now the series he's talking about, in Shea, we had 5 games in 3 days at Shea, and we swept them. Now we, that confidence just builds, and can't wait to get out there and pitch the next day. And our lucky charm that year was Brummer stealing home
against the Giants.
Nobody taught him that.
No.
That was his own instinct, and how it worked out, we never know, but it did.
It's just one of those situations where everybody's sitting on the bench and he takes off and everybody goes, no! And
good idea.
He slides in safe and he goes, yeah!
You're a hero.
It was one of those moments, but it was that type of a season, where you have moments like that where we call him Tractor Head, and Tractor took off, and Brummer was one of those guys, one of those extras who, when you needed a double play broken up, that was his job, and he was very good at that. And he was a catcher that could run a little bit too, So Whitey utilized his
He was the designated Jerry Royce beater.
Yes.
He beat him 3 games in a row with a broken bat in the infield. So Whitey would, if Jerry Royce walked on the field, Brummer was going to play that day, and he always got a hit off him.
Yeah.
So you guys start to feel it in September. And when I got done playing, people asked me, "Do you miss the game?" And I said, "I don't, but I miss September."
Yeah.
You know, with a chance to get to the postseason, like you said, showing up every day. I can't wait to get out there. I can't wait. We're in the hunt. And that October baseball is a totally different game than any of the other games you've played, leading other 162. So that stretch in September, you start building momentum. You start, what was those last few weeks like going up to the postseason?
It was. I mean, it's nerve-wracking, of course, because you want to perform well, and you perform well up until that point, So you got to continue it if you're going to win the World Series. You got to.
The other teams, though, they did a little bit of sparking, too, because we were on the West Coast trip, and these guys stole about 7 bases against the Giants, against Brenly, and Johnny Rabb was the backup. So it gets in the papers in Montreal, and Gary Carter says, you're never going to do that against me. Well, their ears popped up. We go into Montreal, and we had 5 stolen bases by the 3rd inning. And pretty soon Carter's coming out of the game, and he wanted no part of it. So
I'm dizzy. I got a headache here. We love that. One of the things that
didn't you guys go up to hit the next day and say, "Hi Gary, how you doing today?" And real nice to him on the way up.
But the one thing that we had is when you have overall team speed, you can always keep pressure on a defense. When they know you'll run, we go over to first base, and I loved it when Will Clark was playing first base. All you had to do was go, "There it goes! With that high-pitched voice, there it goes. So we were able to play games like that, and when you get into the mind of the opposition, and that's really what it was. I mean, it's being in here and them knowing that, hey, I can't walk this guy because if I walk him, it means it's double.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you can keep that type of pressure on the opposition, you're always in a position to win.
Okay, so you get to the postseason. First round, you got Atlanta, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who kicked the crap out of us all season. They were 10-2 against us during the
season.
And actually, as luck has it, Necro's beaten us 1-0, and we got no chance of hitting him. He's got his dancer, and it's strike after strike after strike. And top of the 5th starts raining and poured for 5 hours, and it's the only rain out at Busch Stadium that year. And then they didn't really have the secondary pitching to come back.
Right.
They Pascual Perez might have pitched the next game, and just the little things like they had Dal Murphy playing center, and and some reason they moved Dal Murphy over to right, put Brett Butler in center. Obi hits the ball in a gap. Murphy's 6'5", Brett Butler's 5'10". The ball just goes over his glove by 2 inches, and we get bases loaded double. And that turned it around, and by then we didn't think anybody could beat us. We could beat ourselves, but we didn't think anybody could beat us. You ran across a great pitcher, that happens. But we started the season off by beating Nolan Ryan 15-4. I called home, said I'll be home in a month. If he's giving up 15 runs, I got no chance up here. But we just destroyed him, and that was another mini thing that
it's one of the things that. One of the ebb and flows along the way that says that, hey, you got something special. And I think all of us coming over here understanding what Whitey was able to do in Kansas City, that being the architect that he was, that he had assembled a pretty good group of guys. And if everybody did their job, which they did, and everybody understood what their job was, and I think that's a very important part of the whole process too, is understand that, hey, if a guy goes down and I come in there and I play good for 2 weeks, it doesn't mean that I'm going to jump in there and be a starter.
Mm-hmm.
Steve Braun had this thing that you see, play me or bench me. What was it?
That was Dane Orge.
Dane Orge, yes. Getting overexposed.
Bench me or trade me.
Yeah, bench me or trade me. The guys they enjoyed their roles, so they didn't want to be overexposed. And they realized that as an extra, if you come in there and you play 3 or 4 days, that's not good. So Dane Orge was one of those players. Steve Braun was one of those players. We later got Gerald Perry, guys that could really fit in and could hit when the game was on the line. And it's important to have players like that.
You look at it, the bench guys that Whitey had a special purpose. Yeah. Brawny was the guy that he'll get a walk off of anybody, and he later did during the World Series, which was part of the big rally that we had. But he'd lead him off an inning because he's going to get on base. If he needed a guy to come up and hit a fastball, then Dane Orge was always ready. So Tito, we could do anything with, put him any place we wanted to, and he was always up for the game. And usually he always made important plays. And after Willie got hurt, later on we had David Green, who was probably the best athlete I've ever seen. But they all just and nobody missed a beat. And and anybody, I don't care who you were, everybody could run. Mm-hmm. So, everybody used to get excited about the stolen bases. The rest of us are on the top step when there's like men on first and second, and there's a chance there's going to be a double here. And just watching all the outfielders getting fidgety, and everybody's going like this. And yeah, they put the pressure on. And the thing is, they knew it. Mm-hmm. Nobody was cocky, but they had that confidence. They knew it, and they knew the other team was and Whitey knew it as a manager.
We played, we played some good New York Met teams. You had Doc Gooden, you had Sid Fernandez, Gary Darling, a lot of good pitching. But we knew that if the game stayed close and we didn't beat ourselves, that from a defensive standpoint, we were a better defensive ball club. We could catch and throw it. They couldn't. And so as long as we kept the ball in the ballpark and didn't beat ourselves, we had a good chance to beat them.
I've heard Whitey say I can deal with an offensive slump, but defense never slumps. Speed never slumps either,
that's
right? I mean, speed. If you got speed,
that's it. You can keep that pressure on.
Yeah,
keep it on.
And you guys recognize that and leverage that mind game.
A couple years later against Gooden, it wasn't 82, but 2 years later, Mazzilli's playing center field with the Mets and Gooden's pitching. And in the meeting beforehand, it was just awesome. He goes, if you hit a ground ball up the middle, just keep going, because Mazzilli's not going to throw you out at second. And we had 5 doubles on ground balls up the middle. Mm-hmm. Like, he just knew this stuff. Mm-hmm. And when he said it, nobody, all right, that sounds good to me.
Just keep going. Yeah.
So now you get into the World Series. You're playing Milwaukee, who is the heavy favorite, right? When you guys go in there,
50-1
for
odds.
good reason, for good reason.
And what were those? Why were they favorites so?
Well, first of all, they hit 240, 250 home runs as a team. I think we hit 67.
Yeah,
I think that was our high, 67.
They just got Sutton.
They just gotten Sutton, and actually they had
Vukovic, Caldwell, Moose Haas, all proven.
They had Fingers too, but Fingers was hurt. So, that played a big part in our being able to do what we did. But they had a good pitching staff. And I'm going to tell you one of the things going over the scouting report. And I remember this because the first game, I think they beat us 11-0 or something like that. We looked at the scouting report, and the scouting report said, play over here. We played over here. They hit it over here. We moved over here. They hit it over there. And I'm talking about Molitor and Yount, Gantner, Cecil Cooper. They were good hitting ball club. They hit a lot of home runs. Boy, they could hit. And they turned the tables on us, and I think they had like 8 or 9 infield hits. And we didn't realize that these guys could run as well as they could. So we had to go back and regroup because Willie and I were riding home that night, and I go, Will, man, can you believe that we laid an egg like this at 11 or 10 or 11-0. I don't even remember what the score was, but it was bad. And some people had pulled up next to some Cardinal fans. They go, man, you guys look bad tonight. Thanks. So, we said to ourselves, I said, I don't know how we're going to do it. I said, but the thing that we have to do is do what we do. Mm-hmm. We can't rely on somebody who hasn't been there all year to watch us do what we do. We just need to put that scouting report down, rely on what we see. And I think we did away with the scouting report, and our pitchers pitched the way that they were supposed to pitch, and we played the game the way we had played it all year. And we had kind of in relying on other scouting reports, it made it was a little different, So we were able to throw that away, and we got it back on track, man. And
so was that something you guys
series.
came to Whitey about, or when you got there, he had already made that decision, or you guys kind of made it together?
They'd already,
On the scouting report?
Scouting report.
Just how you were going to make that adjustment for game 2.
Well, it got off shaky anyways. Like I'm not going to say the names of the scouts that came in, but you had the meeting, and they started off saying, all right, pitchers, we're going to pitch Robin Yount high and away. We're going to pitch Ben Oglivie low and in. I just came over from Milwaukee in that trade, so I've seen them. I was up in the big leagues, got to see them. I said, and I made a little gesture in my locker, and Whitey goes, Snacks, you got something to say? I said, well, I think that's exactly opposite. Robin Yount loves the ball high and away, and Oglivie loves it low and in. Yeah. And he said, I agree with you. You guys get out of here.
Yep.
He kicked.
And this is before game 1.
Before game 1, he kicked the scouts out, and we had our own meeting after that. And then, they destroyed us game 1, and they showed what they had. But another thing, they trade for Sutton to get into playoffs and World Series. I think we beat him 4 times that year with Houston, and then we beat him 2 more times in the World Series. So that was kind of our advantage. He was a great pitcher, don't get me wrong, but we kind of liked, he didn't have the stuff to get our guys out. And then, Stoop came up and got game 6, which that was the critical one. But, we also –
because you're down. So game 6 was critical because you're down, right? That's their winning game if they win that.
We needed somebody to come out and throw the game of their life.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, we go down. And luckily, we had a guy by the name of John Stuber, who went on to be a great coach at the University of Yale, Ivy League school. Think about it.
He's undefeated as a coach in Legends Camp, too.
Legends Camp,
yeah, undefeated, yeah.
He's undefeated.
About to be 2-0.
Probably going to change the next couple of days.
About to be 2-0.
That's going to change. That has to change.
For those that are listening.
Ironic thing about Milwaukee, we opened up in Houston, and they were supposed to play at home or in Minnesota and got snowed out. Houston had the extra auxiliary locker room. They were working out in Houston as we were working out in Houston. We'd pass each other upstairs going to the other clubhouse. So a lot of guys knew each other from those 2 teams. It wasn't a battle of guys. We didn't hate them. Like rivalries you'd have with the Mets or the Cubs or something. We didn't know them that well, but they were a good team. And the other mistake they made is because of Fingers, they weren't sure if he could pitch. They put him on the roster. In every game, he warmed up. They'd warm up 3 guys like he'd be in the middle without a mound, just seeing if he could go. And, I remember they replaced with Pete Ladd and I don't remember who else.
And this is you didn't play them at all during the season.
No.
At that point, right?
No.
There was no interleague. There was no.
No.
Yeah. So this is the first time you've seen them. So that's where that scouting report and that plan is important because you haven't seen them. It's not like today's game where you sit around, you get on the TV in the locker room and there's 8 different games going on and you're watching these guys at all times. Yeah. I mean, it's a different.
We didn't have that. We didn't have that luxury, but we did have Whitey Herzog, who used to do all the scouting reports by hand and in color pencils and pens and stuff. So that was always available to us each and every day. And so if it wasn't every day, it was every other day that you could go in and look at the scouting report and have a pretty good idea of what you're going to do. Now, all of that could change if a pitcher's not throwing the ball where the ball needs to be thrown.
Right.
So you still have to have guys doing their job. If a pitcher could pitch to a scouting report, we could play behind you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the other important part was we were the ones doing those charts, up in the stands and everything like that. And he never let you sit inside and watch TV. You had to be out there in the seat, and you had to get it exactly right.
Behind.
And, the dotted line, the whatever, and it had to be right. And he would come and look at it as soon as the game's over. And if you missed one, he'd let you know about it pretty quickly. He goes, you don't understand, boy, all these boys come in and read them in here, and they're the players are going to come in and look at them. They need that. So we understood.
Yeah.
And so World Series different too. It's like we never saw the umpires.
No.
You switch over, you got different umpires now. You don't know their strike zone, what they're going to be like, and World Series was a whole different thing back then.
Yeah. So you win the World Series. It's relatively early in your career, right? How does that change your career?
Well, here again, I think it's one of those things that you dream about as a kid. You know, when you're growing up, you're in the backyard or you're in the house or whatever. You know, it's the bottom of the ninth, 2 outs. You know, you're looking to be that guy to get the big hit, not knowing if that is ever going to happen. You know, you go out and you play every day, and there's no guarantee that that's going to happen. There are a lot of guys that play 15 to 20 years and never experience what postseason is all about. And here we were able to, for the time that I was here, we were able to experience that, 3 times. We won it in 82. We went back again in 85, back again in 87. And I think people, it's when people started to expect it every year, that, hey, we postseason, this postseason stuff's good. We like it. We love it because it creates a certain excitement. We have a lot of built-ins here. We have the Clydesdales, you're talking about postseason. We got a song, dun 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 dun. So all of that, I think, plays into the excitement that is created in postseason play. It's nice to get the season off that way too. But in October, when you hear the hooves of the Clydesdales and you hear the song, the weather's a little cold. People are wrapped up and they're excited. That's what it's all about. And getting a chance to experience that was really kind of surreal the first time for me. And I can remember coming off the field and experiencing what it was to pop the cork on champagne. Mm-hmm. Now, you do it a little bit along the way, but there's nothing like the way champagne tastes after you've won it all.
Especially at home.
At home, yeah. That's pretty
really
cool.
Nice eye burn, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, it's a nice eye burn. I see the guys now, they got the goggles and everything. We didn't have goggles.
You remember after, we come into the clubhouse and you couldn't see another teammate. There were so many press in there.
I know.
There were
I remember that from
members
ours.
of the press in there. Where's our teammates?
Yeah, you want to celebrate with your team, and but you don't know who's who, so you can't say anything because they might be related to somebody way more important than you.
I think at that time, I think everybody's so happy and so elated that, you've been able to get through a long 162-game schedule, which is grueling. People think that travel is glamour. It's not glamour at all. It's tough. Mm-hmm. Waking up some mornings and looking at the ceiling and going, where am I?
Mm-hmm. What time zone, what city?
What zone you're in and stuff. And there are a lot of things that you have to take into consideration as a player, especially as far as getting rest and stuff. You go into those time zones. That's another thing that Whitey was great at. He was great at giving you what he called a blow, giving you a day off, getting you 2 days for one. Didn't happen a lot with me because on those certain days that he told me I'm going to have the day off, I said, now don't put me in there late to play defense because all I'm going to do is mess up, So we tried to manage around that, but most of the time, when he gave you some time off, it was, you were able to shut it down for a little bit and recharge the batteries and get back in there. He was good at that.
Well, it's amazing to sit here and relive this history with you guys. Ozzie, I appreciate your time and being a part of this and getting to learn those stories, hear those stories. But I don't think there's a coincidence. Like I said, if you mirror it over, I guarantee the 06 team, the stories I've heard, our 11 team, I'm sure your 85 team, and even the 87 team that went to the World Series, there's a continuous theme of all these teams, and it's so cool for me to hear that sitting here and knowing, man, I know exactly what you're talking about. So thank you so much for being in the Chatter's Box and being a part of this 82 series. And that's going to be our episode with Ozzie Smith. Thanks to my host, Dave. What's his last? Dave LaPoint? LaPointe. For co-hosting this. And make sure you guys tune in for the rest of the episodes here as a part of the 82 championships team of the St. Louis Cardinals.